Do it, so we'll try to mind meld tonight. So I'm Davina Smith. I'm the Cannabis Program Manager, and of course the normal folks are here. There's Zara Cruz and Nick McLean, and you all met Jamie Lee out front. So we are part of your cannabis team. We have another couple of colleagues that aren't here tonight, most on the finance side and our hearing examiner side. But we're happy to be here and presenting to you, and we're happy you came out on a Wednesday night. So thank you for that. We do kind of have an ambitious agenda for 2 hours, so I'm going to go through this a little bit quickly. If you need me to slow down, stop, I do speak quickly. Feel free to just shout out or raise your hand, whatever you need to do. Yeah. Okay, so going forward, Ms. Sarah? So we are going forward, of course, with our both the properties that have CUPs on them and our BOPs. So we're pleased about that. Things are moving forward, which is wonderful. The last time we were here, we did talk about the enforcement deadline that we would be doing for January 31st. That is going along. Most folks have either stopped operating, and and then that's kind of the agreement. If people can stop operating, they can take whatever time they need to come into compliance. 17 have either received or they're in the process of receiving. And we have, unfortunately, 18 folks on the enforcement list, and we're going out and visiting them, and number one, making sure that they are not operating, and if they are, advising them that they need to shut down until they get their BOP. If you were not doing anything fun last night, you were probably at the city council meeting where we, I see some familiar faces, yes. The council did approve volatile manufacturing for the city. It goes into an effect in 30 days. For OCM, our process is going to be just a modification of your BOP. It shouldn't be too awful. We really just kind of envision checkboxes and a pretty straightforward process. The CUP modification, I don't believe, that's going to be something that planning will have to advise on. I don't believe that they intend to make it very arduous. I think it's mostly to make sure that there are no sensitive uses, no fire issues, things like that. But we're excited that this is a new industry that we can have here in Sacramento. So it's a great step forward for all of us, I think. This next section is pertinent to folks in the core program, but it's kind of exciting, I think, for cannabis in Sacramento, period. The council did direct that we would have 10 more storefront retail outlets, 5 the first year, 5 the second year. The council directed us that these would be exclusive for core applicants. A core applicant must own 51% of the business to be eligible, and they'll have 3 years from lottery award to open that business. The other thing that's kind of exciting is an extension of locations where those storefront dispensaries can open. So where they are now, shopping centers and Del Paso Boulevard is where we're looking at. And then, of course, for core folks, if there was, I think going forward, if there's a CUP on a place that's expired, we're looking at ways of sort of reactivating that for core individuals only who want to operate a storefront dispensary. They would, of course, be subject to whatever terms and conditions of the CUP that was there previously. So, where are we now? Okay. So we did have a core stakeholder meeting on the 21st, and we received quite a bit of input from folks. Some of it, contradictory, of course, as people have different opinions. So we got a lot of input on how the process should be for giving out those storefront permits. I think after a lot of sort of feedback and internal discussion, I think we've kind of fallen upon this idea of doing a pre-qualification to enter into the lottery. So we're still looking at what that pre-qualification process should look at. We have pretty much decided it's going to be a blind review. So we're going to disassociate names and either businesses or people from the applications that are submitted, and just have a group made up of economic development, cannabis. We're looking at asking folks from GSL and SAC Asian to sit on in that. We're looking at potentially a cannabis government person from another jurisdiction to come in and help with that as well. So that's kind of, we're looking at what that review team would be. It would not be any of us. We like you all too much. We would want to give you all these permits, and we cannot. So what are some of the things that we're looking at is really beyond sort of the basic business. What can you provide to other core folks? So this list here and then the list on the next page are some of the things that we're looking at. A lot of it has to do with mentoring, with kind of pulling other people up, providing space, providing networking, providing training, things like that. And so these are some of the things we would be looking at evaluating as part of that pre-qualification process. We are still kind of refining this. We are accepting comments, thoughts, suggestions, criticisms, whatever you guys have, feel free to email them to us, cannabis@cityofsacramento.org. We'd love to hear that. Because again, we're kind of spitballing, going off what we heard at our core stakeholder meeting, as well as sort of what we huddle about. That's fine. I think we can do that. We could probably put it up on our website. That shouldn't, I can't imagine that would be a problem. No, I think I'm being told by staff that I like let people talk too much. So I'm like, they're like, you have a time frame. You have to, because we do have special guests that do want to talk about an exciting opportunity. So I'm trying to kind of get through this. But yes, so we will. I think it's a great idea. We'll put this PowerPoint up on the website, and then people can say, you know, on slide 4, that's the worst idea ever. On slide 23, we love it, and I think that will be helpful. So thank you. Let's see. So everyone wants to know, when is this going to happen? We have a tentative calendar. A lot of it's kind of dependent on what happens, of course, with agendas that we don't control. So as you see, we've got everywhere from March 24th on up. We're looking at doing about 6 weeks for the submission period of time. We will publish once we go to through Law and Ledge Committee. That'll be a public document as to what our intentions are. And at Planning and Design, again, assuming there's any changes by Law and Ledge, those will be there. But people should have really from about the end of March until that submission date, which is 6/1. So a good chunk of time to really kind of prepare your materials and get ready. So that should provide people a good chunk of notice to do that. We're going to have that blind review. We're going to, staff is going to sort of disassociate, send the materials out to the reviewers, get that back. And then we're going to notify people, and then we're going to have a lottery. So the lottery, those folks will know if they're in the lottery or out of the lottery, and then we'll have someone pick names. Again, probably won't be any of us. We'll try to get some guest star to appear and do that. All right, in other exciting core news, I'm sorry. I'm being glared at. But yes, please hold your questions, and then we can definitely talk at the end. Yeah. And then for the reimbursement program that we currently have going, so this is a grant that we got for $1.19 million. And this is a reimbursement program. We have talked about it previously. It's available on a per permit basis, and it is for reimbursement. On next slide. So we've talked about some of the things that we're going to do, and we're accepting applications for this now. This is not anything necessarily new. This has been out there. So it's core eligible, core graduate are currently going through the core program, either have a BOP or an active application, and you have to own 51% of the business, the core person does. For reimbursable expenses, again, this is pretty much what we've had in the last meetings we've talked about. It's really kind of what you need to do to start a business. So we're reimbursing up to $25,000 with receipts for these costs. On the next one. And these are more of those costs. So this, again, is nothing new. This is something that we've had at our last meeting. Now on to new stuff. So this is what we're looking at doing, because one of the things that we hear is that there's a lot of expenses, of course, that we didn't include. So we're looking at opening up the rent reimbursement to not just, up to your CUP level. We're going to do it up to $25,000. If you didn't get your CUP, if you just were able to move into a building that had a CUP, we're willing to reimburse you for that rent. We're going to, I think, offer also incentives to property owners. And the idea here is to really open up space and convince property owners that, hey, cannabis can be a great tenant, right? Cannabis businesses can move in and do this. So we're willing to offer up to $25,000 for a property owner to pay for a CUP when at least 50% of the tenants are core businesses with a 3-year lease. That is going forward, though. So if you were already in the pipeline to do that, then we're not going to, because you already are intending to do it. This is opening up new space available to businesses. And then we're also looking at if a location already has a CUP or a tenant has already paid for a CUP, we're looking at up to $25,000 for a property owner who pays those building fees and some of those tenant improvement costs. And again, at least 15% of the building tenants have to be core applicants with 3-year leases. Has to be for that core specific premises. We are allowing for both categories a cap of $50,000. So if a property owner wants to do the CUP and then wants to do tenant improvements up to $50,000, we will allow that. We want to, again, open up businesses, open up locations for people to move into. Additional things we're looking at is for the core applicants themselves. We're willing to reimburse up to $25,000 when you apply for your BOP, and once you have that, and then once you get your BOP, we'll open up another $25,000 and make that. If the business is 100% core, we know that's a high bar. So if people have strong thoughts about that, let us know. Maybe an 80% core ownership is better. So definitely email us, call us, let us know what you think about that. And then, of course, retroactive reimbursements is a big question. How far back can you go? So we're looking 1 permit cycle. Change in ownership is kind of a big deal. So if it was a less than 51% owner, if it wasn't core owned before, we're not going to look past that date. It's just core ownership, 51% going forward. Go ahead. Now for the bad news, everyone loves to talk about taxes. So we talked before about the 509 and the W9 forms that have to be filled out. Those are pretty one-form, straightforward kind of things. In talking with our folks here at the city who deal in the finance areas, we were informed that that reimbursement is considered income and it's subject to tax. So we will be sending out 1099s in January of 21. I know, I'm sorry. It is what it is. Sorry about that. The reimbursement will be in a form of a check. So we've kind of giggled about going to Rayleigh's and buying a bunch of, $9,000 Visa prepaid visas, but I don't think we can do that. So I think it's going to have to be checks, and if that's a problem, you need to know up front that that's kind of the situation we're dealing with. And then, of course, where are those forms available? Well, if you look at our website, we've got it there. If you can't find it, give us a call, give us an email, we'll send it out to you. Now on to happier topics, more money. So again, for core businesses, we're currently in the process of applying for up to $10 million for those equity applicants and licenses. So that is a very exciting thing. We are frantically writing that. We've been working for a good 2.5 to 3 weeks, writing solidly, trying to put together a good application. That's where I just came from. So for that, we are looking specifically to do a couple things. The number one thing is we want to set up a revolving no-interest loan program. We think that lack of access to capital is one of the huge barriers, and so we're trying to minimize that to the extent that we can. So we're planning to take the biggest chunk of money we get and apply it to that loan. And we want it to be a revolving loan because we really want people to be able to, in the future, continue to draw from that. So not just help the people today or this year or next year, but the people 5 years from now that are looking to get into the business. So we're really hoping that we'll get enough money to make that a reality. We're very excited about that possibility. In that loan, we're really looking at tying the top amount that can be loaned out to the type of business. We know that different businesses, of course, cost more to open than others. And so that's kind of where we'd be looking at. So if people have thoughts about what those caps should be, we'd love to hear them. We have our ideas, but none of us have ever actually opened a cannabis business. So getting information from the experts would be very helpful. The other things we're looking at is looking at a grant program for business accelerator or incubator programs. So in that, we're really looking at sort of two types. An incubator course is a much more of a wraparound services program that would provide really kind of from an idea to a business. So if you are an operator who is doing well, who knows what you're doing, you want to do this, and want to provide these kind of services for a core person, this might be something that you are, or core people, this might be something you would be looking into. The other thing we're really looking at are something what we're calling business accelerators. And the idea there is that, I think there are a lot of people out there, core folks who kind of know their business, they know what they want to do, they just need a space with stable rent for a while, and they need to kind of, have an occasional, I've got a question about workers' comp, I have a question about this. And so the idea here is that for people who want to provide space that's already built out, ready to go, ready to sign leases, ready to provide stable rent for a defined period of time, and then kind of do those mixers once a week or once a month, or have once a month bring in somebody to talk about insurance needs or, labor issues or real estate leases or other things to kind of do this sort of class thing, mentoring, networking. This is something that could apply to you. And those are grants, so free money, but you will get a 1099. So the other thing we're looking at is professional services, kind of almost like a prepaid legal services. So the idea there is that there would be a set amount of money, again, depending on how much we get, that money will go up or down. And we're really looking to contract with an entity that can either has or can contract out a variety of services. So architectural services, legal services, permitting specialists, right? All these various things that we hear so often that core people need, and it's hard to find a lot of times good help, right? It's fine to find people who know that business but also understand the needs of the cannabis industry. So this, again, would be free assistance that you can reach out to and access. We're looking at expungement services. We know our core partners do provide these services, but for those that are core eligible but haven't been able to go through the process of getting into those programs, we think doing a little extra thing here might be worthwhile to help those folks. We're also looking at workforce development and small business sort of education and support. So small workforce development, of course, we know that not everybody who is interested in the cannabis business wants to own a business, right? Either just don't want the trouble of owning a business or want to learn more about it before they decide to really jump in. And so we think having a workforce development, someone who can provide those services, that training, would be a good thing to have. So we're looking to get a chunk of money for that. And finally, last but not least, sort of a business education and support. And I think of this as sort of grad level courses with meet and greets. So I think if you're 2 years into your business, a year and a half, you're kind of moving along. But again, maybe you occasionally need those graduate level business courses, right? With people who understand the cannabis business and understand taxes in depth, cannabis taxes in depth. I mean, I'm not a finance person, but it's a complex subject, and finding people who are knowledgeable about that, it can be difficult and they can be expensive. So having basically someone come in and once a month, twice a month, kind of provide these sorts of classes. It'd be sort of an evening with a professional that can kind of go over this information, and then afterwards have a meet and greet, a networking opportunity might be a good thing to have. So these are some of the things we're looking at and putting in our grant application to really kind of try to cover the gamut of people who are very much just starting out with an idea, all the way to people who have a business and they're just wanting to take it to that next level. So that's really kind of where we're going with that. All right, we're going to take it over to the fun tax. I feel bad, I said taxes are sad. Just when I talk about taxes, they're sad, but when Renelle talks about taxes, they are exciting. All right.
All right, well, good evening, everybody. I'm going to make this pretty short and sweet. So most of this stuff you guys hopefully already know, because everybody loves to pay taxes and to pay them on time. So first and foremost, who pays taxes? Basically, everybody pays taxes, all businesses, even if you're a business that's located outside of the city of Sacramento. This is namely going to be delivery services. If you happen to be outside the city of Sacramento and come into the city, you will be paying taxes. So, you know, I know some of you may also have businesses in and outside of the city. You will also have to apply for a business tax account and get a business tax certificate. And how do you get a business tax? You can actually apply online. You can also apply in person via email or via mail, U.S. mail. We do still use that, some of us. And then how is business tax calculated? The city of Sacramento charges 4% of your gross receipts. So I do have a little example there if you have trouble figuring out how to calculate that. And the business tax, or in addition to the business tax, we do also have a $4 annual state fee that you will see on your business tax renewal. So you will notice this actually in January of every year, and it will show up as a balance due. So you might wonder, what's that $4? It's just simply the $4 state fee. And this will not apply to a large number of you, but some of you guys will be in a BIA area, which is actually a business improvement area. If you are in a business improvement area, you do have to pay a business improvement fee. It is different depending on what area you are. There's Stockton Boulevard, Franklin Boulevard. You will know you're in a BIA area if you, it'll be on line G of your form, but if you see a way to calculate your BIA fee, that's how you'll know you're in the area. If you don't see it on there, then you're not in the area, you don't have to worry about it. This is most important. What are gross receipts? So gross receipts are your total sales. You are not allowed to deduct any business expenses. I know some of you had those questions. And you are able to exclude, when you report your gross receipts to us, excise tax, cultivation tax, and sales tax. So I know some of you guys have had questions about that as well. So please make sure when you're reporting to us that you are excluding those taxes. They are a pass-through tax, which you are actually collecting to pay to another entity. So our intention is not to tax a tax. Okay, and if you have questions, we'll get to those at the end, okay? I want to make sure we get them all at the same time. And this is just a sample business tax form. This is actually the bottom portion. This is the portion that you will keep, or we will stamp and give you a receipt if you come in to pay. The top portion is actually the portion that you will write your gross receipts and remit them to us. But you will notice where on line E, the $4 shows. This will also be where you will see an overpayment or an underpayment if you happen to have one. And then on line G, you will see an example of what the BIA area fee is. Again, this is just for one particular area. This is not necessarily going to be, you know, what you would be paying. But if you do see that on your form, then you know that that's what you calculate, and you pay that every month. And then when to pay business tax, it's calculated and remitted on a monthly basis. It is due for the prior month, no later than the end of the month for the following month. So right now, we are at the end of February. People are paying their January tax period. So they have until the end of this month to pay to avoid penalties, because there are penalties. If you do not pay by the end of the month, there is a $15 late fee. If you don't pay by the end of the following month, there's a $100 late fee. And how to pay. Most exciting part. We do accept all forms of payment. If you are paying by cash and your cash payment is over $2,000, you do need to make an appointment with us. And we are actually going to be introducing Eric here from DAMA. We are rolling out a pilot program from DAMA Financial. It is Cash to Tax app. And the City of Sacramento will actually pay for the cost of one armored car pickup per month. So instead of coming in, I'm going to miss seeing everybody, but instead of coming in to pay your tax, you can actually sign up and apply for a tax account where you will have an armored car come and pick up your cash payment. It will be deposited into a bank account, and then you can go online and actually pay your tax. So I'm not going to present that. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Eric up here from Dama Financial so he can let you know all about how that works. Do you want questions now about tax, or do you want to save them all until the end? Okay, that works. Yeah, that works. Eric, go ahead.
So thank you. Thanks for having me. And I'm also here with Steve Morris from Dama Financial as well. He's the handsome gentleman on the on the front of the PowerPoint. So first, I just want to give you a little bit of background on who we are, what we do, how we do it, and then tell you specifically about cash to tax, as I think that's all valuable information. So just by way of background, we don't come from the cannabis industry. We're banking and payments people, which is what I think you want on this side of the business. Our two co-founders have taken two companies public in that space. But the important thing to note, both of those companies, one of the fundamental value propositions was moving a cash-based economy to a banked and digital economy. And that's what we're trying to do here with cannabis, where so much of it operates in cash. We're trying to help bank it and electronify it so you can operate more like a standard non-cannabis related business. How do we do that? That's the first question everybody asks. How are you able to do that? So what we do is we find FDIC or OCC insured banks that have made a risk-based decision and a board-level decision that they want to bank cannabis. At that point, they also understand that they don't know how to do it. And the it really comes down to compliance. We are a compliance-driven organization. These banks understand they don't have the intellectual capital in-house or the wherewithal, whether that's time, energy, or money to staff up, so they partner with DAMA to run the cannabis program on their behalf. What that means is that we do all the application, onboarding, customer servicing. We prepare all the reports for the banks that they turn into the Fed. And what that means for you, and the benefit for you, is that you end up with an FDIC insured account at a bank that knows you're banking cannabis. No risk of being kicked out, no deposit maximums. You know the name of the financial institution. It's 100% transparent and compliant. We run that program on behalf of a number of banks, which is also important as there's redundancy. As you may have seen, some banks or credit unions have tested the waters, decided they wanted to be in cannabis, then decided they didn't. We run it on behalf of a number of banks, so if that happens, we just move you to a new bank partner. So with that, we've been able to put together a whole suite of products and services to be reflective of traditional style banking, and that goes from a bank account to an interest-bearing account, to merchant processing, we're powering the back end of a cannabis commodities trading platform with a trading account. And importantly here, the purpose of this is for cash to tax. And what we realized is that our primary product, which is a bank account, we can actually help solve a problem, a big problem for both municipalities and taxpayers, in that today, the majority have to go across town with a bag of cash and go pay their taxes. It's obviously a public safety risk, and it's inefficient. So what we've done is created a program called Cash to Tax. It's a very slimmed down, restrictive account. You apply, it's a very simple application process. You can have it in a day or two, and what that account allows you to do is two things. Through us, schedule armored car service to pick up. You could do it online or by calling. Steve runs that whole program. Next day, within 24 hours, you have access to those funds in your account, and you could pay the city of Sacramento your taxes and licensing fees. For that, there's a 2% processing fee, which is very competitive and less than what most credit card companies charge to pay your real estate taxes or any other taxes to any state municipality. A couple important things to note. As Ronell said, the city of Sacramento has graciously agreed to pay for up to one armored car pickup per cannabis-related business per month, which is a great benefit. Only cash. We cannot accept any into the cash to tax account any electronic forms of payments. No checks, no ACHs, no wires. It's only the cash pickup that we're able to accept for this account, and then you could pay your taxes and licensing fees. In our other account, you can accept all forms of payment, but specifically for cash to tax for this, it's just cash. So the important things to note, just to recap, are that you apply online, It's a very simple application process. You have the account open within days. Then you can immediately schedule Armor Car cash pickup. You could do that within the day. Funds get picked up. You have access to those funds next day. You pay your taxes online. And I believe I pretty much covered all of this. I just tend to talk, and it's easier than reading the slides. But I pretty much covered everything in there. We'll be around afterwards to answer any questions that you have about it. We also have some information out front that you could fill out just for informational purposes so we could follow up with you. But any questions as it relates to DAMA, the Armor Car process, cash to tax, and the relationship with the city, we're here to answer for you guys. I think they wanted to hold questions until the end.
So at this time, yeah, if people want to just kind of line up, and then depending on where your questions are, can we just jump up and answer them, whether it's Renell or you or me? Does that
Sure.
work? Okay. So we have a podium here set up if you want to ask questions. It's such a great job. Oh, okay.
Okay, for Dama Financial, I saw that you have an ad on Ganjapreneur, so that has a lot of information. Noticed on your slide, you had something about additional fees may apply based on location. What's that about? Can you elaborate?
So the additional fee would be for the cost of an additional Armor Car cash pickup. The city pays for one a month. If you wanted a second one, that cost would be incurred by the cannabis-related business.
So it doesn't depend on location in terms of citywide. It's strictly whether it's more than one pickup.
That, and if it goes outside the city of Sacramento, as some people have businesses that want a pickup that you may have to pay Sacramento taxes for, whether, like as you alluded to earlier, with a delivery company. So if it goes outside the city lines, then the cost of the Armor Car goes up.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Hi, team. Renell, do you allow cash appointments for payments on Fridays?
Hi, Sophia.
Hi.
Yes, we do allow them on Fridays when we have the room available. It's kind of the very unfortunate part about having our room now is that we actually share that with doing parking ticket hearings. So oftentimes they're on Fridays. I know we all love doing those on Fridays. So when it is available, usually the afternoons is when it's being used for the parking ticket hearing. So sometimes on the mornings we can do Fridays, but yeah, Fridays are tricky. Yeah, but we do allow them if the room's available.
We just have to make our appointments ahead of time,
That is correct.
before the day of.
That is correct. The earlier, the better to make your appointments.
Awesome.
Yeah.
My second question is for Dama. When you say that we have to sign up online for our account, and then you do our pickup, which the city will pay for that first pickup, then we need to actively pay taxes to the city from that account, right?
Correct.
Use it like any other account. Got it.
That account, the cash to tax account, can only pay to the city of Sacramento.
Okay, but we need to actively initiate that payment
Yes, you do.
ourselves.
You go
Okay,
online.
So that's not automatic.
No. You go
Got it.
online, just like if it were a regular bank account, you'd go online, click the drop-down menu, and
So we can't like set up like an auto pay?
not on the cash to tax account, no.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
We're really excited about this program. Thank
Great,
you, City.
Thank you.
Hi, Ardell Lemon. Would like to talk to the person, the incentive for landlords, who's in charge of that one?
I'm in charge of it, but I can definitely talk
Okay,
about it.
well, the first question is that the incentive for landlords for the CUP, making sure I understand that, the $25,000 and the $50,000. If a landlord leases to a tenant and they enter into agreement and the landlord pays for the CUP, my understanding that you guys will reimburse him or them?
So, yes, so what we're looking at is because these funds are tied to assisting local equity applicants. So we want to, if we're going to be actually dispersing money to a non-equity applicant, we have to make sure it's for the benefit of the equity applicants. So in order to ensure that, we're willing to reimburse up to $25,000 for that CUP to the property owner, but that property owner has to show us that they have at least 50% of the property leased to core members, and we're looking at a 3-year lease to provide some
Three-year
level of
minimum
stability.
lease. Okay, the second question, the incentive for the landlords, well, back on A, how long does it take to get reimbursed for your CUP from the time you execute it?
So once you fill out that application, and it's literally a 2-page application plus a page of demographics that the state asks us to collect, attach your receipts from the planning and building department, attach that signed lease, and with the core member, showing that, and also we probably need some kind of site plan or other thing that shows that your building has at least 50% core. So once we have that proof, the turnaround we've been told from our finance folks is 2 to 4 weeks for a check to be cut and put out.
Okay. It's encouraging. Keep going. Okay, incentives for the capital improvements on the building. Now, when we go through our building process, we go through the design review. They approve what you're going to be able to put on there, and you can put it in phases. On the capital improvements, how is that treated for the reimbursement? So let's say you got one parcel, and you have 5 buildings, and you're going to do them in phases. So on the capital improvements, how is that treated, say, for the first 2 buildings, just to give an example?
So I think what we'd be looking at is, again, so let's say for those first 2 buildings, let's say you've got 3-year leases with core participants, so you don't have any issues there. I think we would, again, be looking at receipts. I think those receipts would need to show that the work was done on that building. So you'd have your receipts from the building department, and then whatever construction-based receipts you would have, and then you would submit those. So we're really looking, again, that it's got to be tied to a building that has at least 50% core for a defined period of time.
Okay. Great. And then the last question is...
Oh, and can I just add on?
Sure.
And that $50,000 cap, so that's together. So if you've got 4 buildings you want to do tenant improvements on, as long, we're willing to reimburse up to $50,000. Am I messing this up? I think that's correct. And then if you're doing, you could do a CUP plus tenant improvements. So we're kind of allowing people to mix and match. Really, the goal is to try to open up space for core people to have businesses.
Okay. Last question, timeline on getting reimbursed. Is that the same as the CUP?
So the reimbursement is going to be the same, 2 to 4 weeks. It's just a matter of how complete your application is. So if you fill out your application completely, all the leases, the core verification, the site plan showing, or the building plan showing that it's 50% core, if that's all there, then we just submit it. We send, the checks are cut, they're sent out, and that process happens. So it should be, again, 2 to 4 weeks turnaround for that, and then whatever time in front we need to say, hey, we also need, we need a copy of your site, so we see how many units are in your building to make sure 50% are leased to
Last question, I
core.
promise. If you have more than one location, is it dedicated to one owner or each parcel?
So I think what we're looking at is owner. I think we're looking at owner is what it is. So, if you own 3 parcels, and each parcel has the ability to have 3 units, right? Three units on there for businesses. You could start out getting a CUP on parcel A, do tenant improvements on parcel B, get another CUP, and then do some tenant improvements on C. I think we're open as long as, you don't exceed the $50,000 cap, and again, that you're doing the at least 50% core with 3-year leases.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have more questions. I'll leave it at that.
No worries. Appreciate it.
Hi, I actually am going to feed off of his question for you. In many instances, some of the properties that would be available, since this is a funding program that's for the core and for those people to get into a business location and start to operate, sometimes the owner of multiple, let's just use a strip center, for example, it may be owned by the same entity, and it may be 2 or 3 strip centers that they own, and they want to put individuals in each of these. Wouldn't it tie to the individual that's going in that is actually the applicant on the lease and not the landlord?
So the money would go to the landlord, and so we're looking at capping the $25,000 or $50,000 to the landlord. But it is tied to a tenant in that, so that tenant couldn't say like, okay, I have a mobile dispensary, right, BOP, and I'm going to say, yeah, you can use my kind of core status to get your tenant improvements at building site A and at building site C and at building site C. So we're going to be tracking that.
No, yeah, I get that,
Yeah.
but let's say you have 3 core individuals that are applying. They just so happen to have the same landlord at 3 different locations in the city. Are you going to cap all the money that would go to those 3 individuals over just one landlord? Because they own all 3 properties? Or would it really follow the tenants?
So, yeah, so.
Does that make sense to you?
I think I know, but let me ask you this, because, what we're really looking at is, okay, let's say, if we're really gonna like make it rain money, then let's talk about property. I have a kid who's like always trying to do that. Property owner whose tenants come to him or future tenants come and say, hey, let's do this, right? You can get this money back. So property owner then gets $25,000 CUP, tenant improvements, right? Let's say there's 50% core, and then those core people can come in and say, hey, I've had to buy a point of sale machine, I have to do this and that, I have 3 months of rent. We have one pot of money going to the landlord who's opened up these spaces for core people to come in, and then we have the core applicant coming in and saying, hey, these are my reimbursable expenses.
Right.
So we separate them out in that way, but I think we're kind of combining a little bit more when it comes to the property owner.
Yeah, I'd like you to think about that, because there's a lot of slum landlords that have lots of property, and there'll be many core individuals that would like to see those properties improved in their neighborhoods or communities. And this would be a great catalyst in order for this complete lifting. You have a lifting that there's a new entity that's open, that's doing business. This individual is now he's now operating a business, and simultaneously, the landlord could get participant on that specific location to some level, and it wouldn't affect any of his other properties unless another new individual decided to move into, let's say, on the west side, another location. I just wanted you to kind of think about that, because unfortunately, a lot of properties are held by a very few groups of people and organizations. So that was that question.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that.
The other one is another tough one for Rennell. The city of San Diego has made it absolutely clear that any sales tax or any tax that is being paid in the specific city of where the business is operating, and that product is then sold into, it's never been sold in Sacramento, but it's being sold into San Diego, they still want to get their tax.
Absolutely.
And do you also need to be, do we also have to pay your tax as well? Because then it's a double tax.
Correct. And again, that's not our intention. We actually are working on discussing this as we speak, because I just got word that El Dorado County is also wanting their cut.
Yeah. Los
So-
Angeles is doing it now
Yeah,
too.
and rightfully so. It totally makes sense. And like you said, the same for other businesses who are not located in the city of Sacramento.
Right.
It's going to be hard for us to know and tell, but, we would certainly want them to be reporting tax to us. So, yes, in situations like that, I do believe that you should be able to exclude taxes that you are paying to
Okay.
another entity, so long as you can prove that you are
Yes,
paying
of
that
course.
to the entity. Yes, you should not have to be double taxed on that.
Okay. Yeah, because there is litigation going on right now, because this has been a class action that occurred on this for other uses besides cannabis, but all of a sudden cannabis is like everyone's making tons of money. It's
Absolutely.
not necessarily true.
Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification.
Absolutely. Mhm.
Sorry, this question's for Dama. I just was wondering if you could touch on what your social equity offering is for people that are eligible for social equity.
Sure.
Yeah.
Good question. So that's unrelated to cash to tax, but on our standard banking, typically we have a flat monthly fee. If you're a social equity applicant, there's no fee.
And then what about percentage per transaction or something along those lines? You still pay that percentage per transaction?
You do.
And then if there's a transaction from a DAMA, say I'm a distributor and I'm working with a dispensary, if we're both DAMA customers, is there some kind of rate break or anything like that?
If it's an electronic transfer, there's no charge.
Great, thank you.
My question is on the tax for Rennell. So I'll just clarifying that. So you're saying that the taxes that other cities are starting to charge is going to become a pass-through tax for us in Sacramento? And so basically, we'll be able to write that off? So, is that what you're saying? Because like San Diego charges 2%, so now I'm only going to pay the city of Sacramento 2% out of the 4?
No. If you are located in the city of Sacramento and you have another jurisdiction's tax because you are delivering to San Diego, you're a distributor, whatever, and you are paying a tax to the city of San Diego, so long as you can show that you're paying that tax to the city of San Diego, you can exclude that from the portion of gross receipts that you report to the city of Sacramento.
Gotcha.
Yep.
I just wanted to make one clarification, is that generally the tax that you'd be paying in that situation to San Diego would be just on the sales or the revenue generated in San Diego.
Correct. Yes.
So it's this tiny little amount of offset. And so, yeah, then you would exclude those, you would exclude that. What are we going to do? Are we going to reduce the tax? Or are we going to exclude the revenue earned in San Diego? So we probably have to figure that out.
Maybe we can explore
in
that
our
a little
group
bit
and
talk it over with our attorneys.
Yeah, and make sure that everybody has real clarification.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good evening. I have a question in regards to the lottery process and procedures. I'm not sure if I missed something. In regards to the qualifications for to enter the lottery process, were those the qualifications that were listed, or was there a time period? Did we get a date of when those qualifications will come out? I know you said they'll be due, you'll have between the 22nd and June 1st, correct? So when will we get the information of what will be needed to enter the lottery?
So basically, we are developing those qualifications now. So we kind of put these out. I think I tried to put a question mark. I don't know. It was a significant question mark. Because the idea being like, this is, we definitely want, one thing that people to be evaluated on is are they able and willing to kind of give a hand up to other people, right? And assist other folks.
Yes.
So we're looking at that aspect. And then we're also talking to sort of economic development and cannabis people in other cities about like how they do their stuff and looking at what are the business things, like what kind of a business plan. So we will have a list of exactly what you need to submit, and we'll also have a scoring sheet so you know exactly how we're scoring it, right? If it's 10 points for a possibility of 10 points for a business plan, possibility of 20 points for your social equity plan, possibility of 30 points for your budget. Whatever it is, and it'll equal out to 100, or and then we'll go from there. So you'll know exactly what the scoring is, where it's weighted, and what you have to submit.
Okay, and this and these qualifications on this slide, I would assume will be in alignment with the social equity plan.
That is our intent.
Okay.
So, and again, if people have thoughts on this, if they have comments, if they hate something, love something, definitely let us know. We want feedback. So don't be shy.
Okay.
I know you are, but don't be shy.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Can we have Dama come up? He wants just like 30 more seconds to just recap something. It's up to you, because we might have questions on that. You never know.
So I just want to give a little background on the armored truck services. So that you guys are not confused. One thing that DAMA does, my background is 30 years in the armored truck business. So when I came to DAMA, one of the first things I did is ensure that our armor providers have the proper insurance that cover cannabis cash. So one of the things you got to be careful with is that an armor truck company will say, yeah, we could pick you up, but if something were to happen with your deposit that gets lost, their insurance might reject that claim because they're not covering any cannabis. One of the largest insurance providers for armored truck companies is Lloyd's of London. And with Lloyd's of London, they're very particular. So you have to buy additional insurance in order to be covered for cannabis. Every one of our armor providers have that because I make sure of it. They also carry a $10 million all-risk insurance to insure your funds as well. And what that means is that $10 million, that truck, if your deposit's in that truck and it's mixed with other deposits, you're covered 100% for your deposit. So just want to make sure I make that clarification for you.
Hello, I have a question for you. So I brought up at the last meeting that you have to get your CUP before the BOP, and you were considering maybe offering Corps members the ability to get a BOP, or at least apply for it before a CUP, because it just doesn't make sense for $25,000 for me to get into a bad CUP deal, just for that. So has any movement been made to let us apply for our BOP even though we don't have a CUP yet?
So I can tell you, movement has been made, but probably movement you won't like. I mean, so we're talking about it and thinking about how we can do this. One of our issues is, when we issue a BOP, that kind of triggers the state that you have local authorization to operate, right? So, but if you don't have a location, then how does, so we're trying to figure out, like, how can we make this work somehow? So we haven't quite figured out a solution. We're looking at various angles to it. I can tell you it is something that we are aware of and we're concerned about. And, in a good ways, we're OCM, right? So we're cannabis people, but we're working with our partners in the planning department, and they're like the land people. So they've got their interest and knowledge, and we've got our interest and knowledge, and we're working together. We're trying to get there. So I don't think it's going to be one of those things where at the next meeting I'll come up and say we've solved it. But hopefully, working forward, we will find a way to try to get there, because we do see that as a huge issue, and we agree that is a tough hurdle to overcome. So, right now we're trying to throw a little bit of money at it. I think in the future we'll be throwing more money at it, and that might sort of smooth out that problem. I know it's not a great answer, so sorry.
Okay, so I'm kind of in a unique situation. I have a building and also in the core program, and so as I understand, the deadline for the dispensary lotto is January 1st, right? I'm sorry, June 1st. Is that right? And then you have 3 years to open up a dispensary within that time frame when your applications, or when you picked for a lottery. Is that right?
So yes, so we're having a pre-qualification, right? And then once you've been if you get pre-qualified, if you meet the qualifications to enter in the lottery, we're going to pick those folks. It's 5 for the first year, 5 for the second year. So.
Okay.
A total of 10 over 2 years. And then from that date where you get your winning lotto ticket, you have 3 years to open up.
Okay, so theoretically, kind of like 3 to 5 years, they want you to be up and running as a dispensary.
3 years.
Okay, so, but what I'm trying to say is a lot of us are non-storefront delivery, right? We're kind of working with what we have in a small square foot space. I would just like you to reconsider maybe extending that time frame. So, as a business owner myself, things didn't really start happening until year 3 to year 5, right? So for us to go from a non-store dispensary to, a dispensary level, you're talking about major build out. We need more square footage. All the costs are kind of, elevated because, you're retail now, right? So I think, 3 years is a little aggressive.
I hear what you're saying. I think one of the ways that because here's the thing, number one, we don't want to tie up a permit for years if it's not actually going to be utilized. The other thing, so we want people to kind of get in there and get up and running and do that. The other thing is, which is kind of good timing, quite frankly, is that for this $10 million grant that we're applying for, where we want to make this big loan program available. That should be coming, I mean, we should know probably I think it's the summer, if we're getting it and how much we're getting. So our hope is that, let's say you win the lotto and you have your dispensary permit in hand, and all of a sudden you have a loan option, right? And so maybe it's a $500,000 cap, maybe it's more, maybe it's less. Let us know. What's needed for the different business types. And the hope is at that point you get that no interest loan, and that's going to kind of boost you up, right? And that's going to take care of a lot of that initial stuff you have to do.
Well, without that set in stone, it's kind of hard to game plan as far as, how you build your business model.
I do hear you. And we're trying to, we're trying to do what we can to sort of kind of get all these moving pieces together so that people can kind of have some certainty, because that's the worst thing for business is a lack of certainty. And I know, the history of cannabis in this state is, lack of certainty. So, I don't have good answers. I'm telling you, we're trying to do what we can. I think 3 years is a good period of time. I think it's a compromise.
Okay.
Because we have people who say 1 year you should be able to get up and running, and other people say, no, 6 years. So this is kind of our in-between.
Okay.
If you have strong thoughts on either way, certainly send us an email.
Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Please remain. My name is Glenda Driver. The state has an issue with regards to the proximity of which businesses can be located, especially cannabis businesses. So if I have a core program coming into a building, they may want me not to lease space because of the types of services. Is the city working with the state in order to relieve this issue regarding the proximity of cannabis businesses?
Are you referring more to overconcentration issues, or are you talking more about like daycares and things like that?
I'm not talking about daycares. I'm referring to, I have one dispensary on one end of the business of a building, and on the other end of the building, I may want to put another dispensary or cultivation. I might have a large space and decide that, okay, well, let's have 4 growers in a 10,000 square foot building versus 1 grower. The state would frown on that and say that there is a proximity issue. Am I correct? Yes or no? No?
I'm not
Thank
familiar
you.
with that, no.
No.
Yeah.
Thank you. Please explain. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I haven't heard that, but yeah. So that's great news.
Hello, I'm Michael Hawkins. I have 2 questions and 1 request. One is to Dama on the fee. The fee is calculated on the tax that's being paid, the 2%.
Yes.
And how is that paid?
So you make the deposit. We deduct the 2% of the processing fee, and the taxes get paid. So it's really the
You pay
the
you
amount
pay the
plus
tax
2%,
plus
yeah.
2%,
Yes,
and it's taken
exactly.
out as cash. Okay.
Exactly.
Second question is Renell. On the BOT tax, I just wanted to confirm again, it applies to all businesses, starts at $30 and goes up to $5,000 as far as the tax?
That is for other sales and service taxes, not cannabis tax. Cannabis tax is 4% of gross receipts.
The 4%?
Yeah, what you're referring to is our regular business taxes.
But the 4% applies to other businesses, correct? In other words,
No, only cannabis businesses.
but I thought that it was all businesses pay the BOT tax for being in business in Sacramento.
Correct, but only cannabis businesses are required to pay 4% of their gross receipts. Other businesses, depending on what type of business they're doing, have different types of business tax due.
Right, and they vary from about $30 up to $5,000, correct?
Correct, that is for general sales and service business.
And the cannabis, though, is accepted from that ordinance, and so it's 4% of whatever they gross.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, correct, it is in the same ordinance. Correct.
And then my request is...
It's in our Title III, actually, and
okay,
I can send that.
Davina, is in the next stakeholder meeting, could you give us an update on the neighborhood responsibility plan and program and what's going on with that?
Well, I can definitely see if there's anything going on to report. We try to just kind of report things that are happening and that we have information on. So if anything's going on and we can do that, we will.
Well, for the entities that didn't choose the 1%, that chose the study, they have not received any guidance on what they're supposed to be doing. I know that the bills have been going out for the tax going back to the beginning of 18, and there's currently taxes that are being paid. And so I'm just curious of what the city is going to do in relationship to the issue of whether or not the NRA was originally done as it was supposed to be done under the California Constitution, which is either a majority vote of the property owners or a vote of the voters of Sacramento.
So it sounds like you're asking what the city is going to do legally. So, of course, I can't speak to that. That's something that the city attorney's office will have to address, and they may not, if it is something that is under legal purview, that may not be something they want to address. So
Okay,
I think that's where we are.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any last comments or thoughts? Anybody wants to share? No? All right, well, what about from the presenters? Any last comments or thoughts? No? Okay, well, I really,
Still first come, first serve on the grant money, right?
So the question was whether for the reimbursement program, it is first come, first serve. We have a year to spend, and we're trying to spend. I'm always thinking about being a saver, but we're trying to be spenders, so, yeah.
We did want to make everybody aware that Eric and Steve are going to be here after the meeting if anybody has any questions, and they have some materials that people can pick up.
Have you decided if the lottery is going to be for 5 this year and then 5 the next year, or is it for all 10?
No, so the direction provided by the city council was 5 this year and then 5 next year.
So it'll be 2 lotteries then?
2 lotteries, and so we'll have 1 lottery this year and then another lottery next year.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. I know the kind folks from DAMA, as was said, are going to hang out if people have questions, and we'll hang out a little bit if people have questions. So thank you so much for coming. Appreciate it. And if there's other things, let us know.